to share my screen and then you are able to is my screen visible to you all?
Yes, we
Yes,
can see
yes,
you.
Okay. Uh, a little bit of background about me. I am a privacy specialist SME at present at Amazon, mainly leading Alexa plus shopping features, privacy, AI risk, governance related activity. Prior to Amazon, I used to work as a senior engineering manager at Discover for enterprise decision platform, which involves fraud modeling, running ML models at scale for various authentication and authorization use cases. So just general disclaimer, whatever I'm sharing, these are my own views, comes from my years of experience and expertise. These are not legal advices. If you have a legal question, please talk to a competent lawyer in your jurisdiction. What are we going to cover today? We are going to talk about some of the AI accountability challenges and what are the risks in general around AI accountability risk. Some of the real world insights from responsible AI audits, what normally goes in, what happens around those. We are going to briefly touch upon what are the frameworks available. Mainly, it is focused on ISO 42001. I believe you guys had a session on Friday, or it is coming up as part of the summer school in terms of a deep dive on 42001. I'm not going to get into details of 42001. Little bit on the technical transparency aspects, the three pillars of technical transparency. We're going to talk about it today. And then what are the implications for corporate governance structure? And what would be your key takeaway from this session? It would be about, I'll probably run through about like 25 minutes the session, and then we'll leave the last 10 minutes for Q&A. Does that sound okay?
yes, sir.
Okay, so let's move on. Okay. As most of you are aware, today there are two paradigms, right? Like, is AI is hype or AI is a reality? Depending on who you ask, you will get a different answer. I was reading yesterday an article in, I think, New York Times, where certain Gen Z who are conscious about sustainability because of the amount of power being used by AI for specific queries and stuff, they are refraining from using any AI tool because they are more concerned about the power generation or the amount of energy being used behind AI as a tech. So they are moving away from using or recommending their friends not to use AI. That is more in terms of there is so much awareness and hype around it. So you can see two different aspects of people in terms of how AI being used. So what is the popular narrative is like, some often overestimate AI creative capabilities, creating a false sense of security. In reality, AI systems can be error prone and biased. A famous example would be, I think this is back in 2022 or early 2023. I think one of the Australian supermarket chains introduced meal prep surveys, and then they did not had any responsible guardrails baked into the product. What they have done is like somebody started playing around with that. Like instead of adding real ingredients, go and add ant killer to a sandwich as an ingredient, and they asked that meal prep chatbot to give a recipe, it gave a killer sandwich, really. Probably somebody would have been killed if they use all those ingredients. What has happened? People started adopting quickly without putting guardrails in place, and then the Gen AI went rogue in this case. So error prone and biased. If you are, when we say biased, like if you don't have a representation properly into your training data set. When I say representation, what do you mean by, like, you have all sort of gender, race, ethnicity, country, geography based information provided, then your AI going to be biased based on what you have given. So remember, garbage in, garbage out. What you want as somebody who is governing the program in the corporate, I know garbage is coming in, but do I want to get garbage out? As a part of your responsibility, you need to make sure that there are guardrails in place, there are mechanisms and measures in place which helps you in terms of reducing such content out. Because what is going to happen at the end of the day, you're going to lose customer trust if your answers are not accurate, trustworthy, and truthful, and you are not grounding your responses based on actual facts and truth. So some of the challenges what we have is accountability gaps. Accountability gaps is like traditional corporate governance structure is not built for the changes which is happening in AI. Most of the board or the board members doesn't have expertise in AI. That is something which you need to consider. And then what are the consequences of these lapses? For example, a HR consulting firm started using AI for their application filtering. It's basically like started filtering out candidates who are women. It's basically a bias, but they didn't check properly those things as part of their implementation. And when you put that in production, now you suddenly have issues like this. Or, and you might have also heard about these cases like AI financial system, which started going and executing rogue trades, which is creating a huge financial risk for the company. So if you don't have guardrails, you are going to get into those sorts of issues also. So why we need the need oversight, accountability is crucial. It's mainly to align AI use with legal obligations and ethical duties, and to maintain stakeholder trust and customer trust. Okay, let's move on. What are some of the things we can see from real world responsible AI audit? So when you are doing the responsible AI performance assessment, generally you will measure on data independence, evaluating the customer experience. So the team leading the assessment should be the ones to run all the data through the service or the product, and approach to do this should capture the expected customer experience in general. And then are you doing demographic annotations? All demographic data annotation should adhere to existing best practices of data annotations. Because remember, not all use cases, not all products and feature need LLM or generative AI as a solution. Don't over apply for a simple rule-based system or a task which can get solved by a normal automation with the help of Gen AI and LLM, because many have this fear of missing out, right? So now, because of the hype cycle, many organizations are embarking on this journey without even thinking about what is going to be my return on investment on this, or what is the key goal or a customer problem which I'm going to solve because of this tech. So what do you normally see in these audits, right? Normally you see lack of clear ownership of EA outcomes. No one is accountable. When I say no one is accountable, depending on how your organization is structured, or if you are a consultant going and evaluating somebody, look at how these organizations are structured. For example, some organizations have responsible AI being put as a part of security and privacy team. Some organizations have put responsible AI as a part of legal teams. Some organizations have mixed ownership. Unless you have a clear designated one accountable leadership and organization empowered for AI, you always have issues. Oh, our team did the right thing, but it was should be caught by somebody who was doing the output validation, or before sending it to the customer, they should have prevented it. All that stuff will happen when you don't have one single assigned accountable entity within the organization. Then what would be the other stuff happens? Undocumented model. What do you mean by undocumented model? You have version X of the model running in your production systems today, and you move from version X to version Y, and you don't have documentation on that version Y, and suddenly if there is an AI incident happens and you don't have your incident response plan updated to reflect model Y, and you don't have a model Y system card published for everybody to consume and understand, hey, this is the training data, this is what the system prompt looks like, this what could be the potential problems. So in that case, what will happen is, like, undocumented models are one of the common issues what you uncover when you are doing responsible AI audit. Bias training data going unnoticed. As we discussed earlier, your data representation. When we say data representation, we are talking about all the key demographic attributes, right? Like, for example, if your inputs has sensitive personal data, you are making sure those are scrubbed in the input data, right? So that way, like, you are not having any privacy violation when the output gets generated, because models have the ability to remember, memorize, regurgitate. So you want anything about, like, you have given some data, you want to make sure it is clean of sensitive personal information. At the same time, it is also representative of all genders, all race and ethnicity and demography. If you don't have that, then probably you will have bias training going. Bias will be there in this. We all remember a year back when Google introduced about image generation, how people have pushed parameters so that, like, there is a lot of oak image generation happening. They need to shut off that capability before it is being reintroduced for a brief period of time. So that's an example in terms of, like, it's in practice, like, you have not seen what sort of bias it could have, and then you have to pull back and then reintroduce certain things. And then missing fail safe or human in the loop for high stake decisions, right? For example, I'm going to do credit authorization, loan authorization related stuff, depending on what is the amount and various parameters. Do you want to have a human in the loop for making such decisions, or you are going to have it as a fully automated stuff? If you have these as fully automated, uh, hey, Mercy, if you can mute yourself, it would be great. Thank you. Uh, so missing fail safe. So those things you will find as, like, common findings. What are the sample use cases for these kind of issues you have, as we saw earlier, like, a customer service AI tool being biased, in the sense, like, if the AI tool is being trained basically on male voices, and the tool is being trained only on certain demographics, when it is addressing users, it assumes certain things, and that bias creates problem in terms of how the tickets and stuff was created. A HR screening tool, which has been trained with bias data, it's leaving out women applicants as part of the process. So this is basically like, creating accountability issues. So you want to make sure that you're when right from the entire software development life cycle, right from con ideation till the product gets out of the door, and once it is operationalized, what are the operational metrics which I'm going to monitor when I am deploying an AI use case that needs to be there. So organizations should implement bias testing, robust validation, and documentation from the start. It's not an afterthought, right? Oh, now I have built it. I'm in the testing phase. Now I'm going to incorporate RA metrics and stuff. Too late. You're not going to catch the stuff. Probably what would have happened is the model being already trained on, and it does not account for those things. So regular independent audits can act as a safety net to detect issues early and protect the company's reputations. So those are some of the things what we see as part of RA audits. Let's move on. What are the frameworks which we have and what these framework gives, right? I'm not going to dive deep into ISO 42001 here. Feel free to reach out to me for the controls and stuff if you have questions. But what general structure ISO 42000 or NIST RMF in cases where you don't have a mandatory needs to get assessed, but you can self-establish yourself saying that, hey, I'm following this standard, and you can self-publish like, no, oh, this I'm meeting this framework by doing so and so. What 42,000 gives? Policy and clear leadership. You need to have a clearly defined AA policy and responsible AA policy. Boards and executive must define an AA ethics policy and demonstrate commitment to AA responsibility. It has to be top down. Risk management. Identify and assess AI related risks and integrate them into your risk management process. Most bigger companies have enterprise risk management established as a function. Need to make sure they have AI related risk covered in all those. Operational controls. As we talked earlier, I have model, I have new versions of the model coming. If I don't have a clear documentation, if I don't have the clear documentation of the training data I have used in the process, it's going to create issues. So make sure your operational controls capture those things. Require documentation of data sources and models, testing for fairness and robustness, human oversight for critical decisions, and incident response plans for AI failures. What happens in a scenario where AI goes rogue? I don't want to be impacting my business, because it's not just AI governance, it's more in terms of what are your disaster recovery plan in this case, right? Like, can I still fall back to my older mechanism to continue operate the business as is? Those are the operational controls. Those are given by the framework. Like, how do you want to structure that? And then continuous monitoring. I have put the AI use case in production. Uh, how the model is doing, auditing, and improving that over each cycle. That is something which you want to do, and then making sure that your quality management has input for those things. Let's move on. So, what are the benefits by implementing those controls? So as you see, all the leading cloud providers such as AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, everybody is ISO 42001 certified. I have referenced their publicly available statements and then certificate of assessment for those standards. Uh, so if you are somebody who's a small and medium business owner, or you are consulting somebody who's a small and medium business owner, and you have these companies as partners for enabling their use cases, then you already are telling the SMB or the company who's looking to get these in place, that they are 42001 certified, which gives them confidence in terms of what measures are already in place. So if you want to do business with anybody who is, especially in terms of EUA Act, right? Like there are requirements for what a deployer should do, what a consumer should do, what a service provider should do, depending on the role you perform. EA Act clearly says what certain things need to be done, and 42001 helps you from that aspect, meeting your regulatory obligations. Okay, now let's talk about the key measure which helps us to develop accountability from the ground up, right? So transparency is very important. For LLM use cases, without transparency, there's no accountability. So without understanding how an AI, for example, without understanding how an AI assistant arrives at an answer, neither the company nor its users can fully trust it. One clear example, right? Like, and some of you might know this, like, between 2022 to now. So source attribution was not there always in most of the LLM use cases in the early days. Now you can see transparency is very important over the last 3 years. Every LLM use case, okay, be it any specific LLM, you will see the sources are clearly attributed. So you want to make sure that your grounding truth such as is being clearly called out. So that way, you know that if there is any misinformation, disinformation in the response, because of what attribute it is coming from. What are the three pillars of transparency? Explainability, traceability, and auditability. Okay. What do you mean by explainability? Ensuring AI decisions or outputs can be interpreted by humans, helping even non-technical stakeholders understand the AI reasoning. That is very critical. And that's where your technical team comes into play in terms of making sure stuff which are done technically is transferred and explainable to the customer, to other stakeholders within the company who doesn't understand the tech behind AI. Traceability, maintaining end-to-end record of data and model processes. For an example, LLM like ChatGPT, this means tracking which data sources and model versions contributed to given output and logging the chain of events, right? Chain of events in the sense, what is the input? What is the system prompt? What are the other actions you took? Since this environment is now so complex, what are the RAG and other evidences which you use, which led to a specific response? You want to have traceability for your each request and response. So the traceability lets auditors or engineers pinpoint where things might have gone wrong. Because without that mechanism, as assume I'm a foundational model provider, I will not be able to move fast from one model version to the other model versions. And then auditability, building systems so that they can externally or independently audited. For most cases, like for example, if I'm coming and auditing you for ISO 42001, I may not have the required skill set solely by myself. So what will happen? It will be a team of SMEs. Someone is good in understanding machine learning and AI, somebody who understands legal, somebody who understands the entire audit framework. So it is team of individuals who comprises multitude of skills who come and audit you more from a black box perspective. So that way, like you have built a robust logging and documentation. So an auditor or a third party can view how decisions are made in practice. So without these three things being baked into your entire development life cycle, you will not have transparency. Uh, baked in. So remember, transparency measures turn out abstract principles into concrete tools. They enable accountability by allowing engineers, auditors, and even users to look under the hood of UI systems. When I say look under the hood of UI systems, in how, again, earlier it is garbage in, garbage out. Even if garbage in, if my one of the data sources is, we found out it has bias, it doesn't have representation, you are ensuring that is not causing problems when you are generating the responses. How does it help corporates? How does it, I'm on the board or you are advising the board, how it is helping them? Some of the things what you want to make sure is your board has a literacy, so that they are trained on things which are happening, and then recent trends they're aware of. Make sure your board has a representative or an SME who understands, who represents AI well, so that they help the board to make good decisions. If it is possible, make sure like you are hiring such person or inducting such person into your board. Make sure if there is most nowadays, and I think like EU AI Act mandates also. So you will see Chief AI Ethics Officer or a AI Risk Committee being formed. That is something which is also needed from a corporate governance structure. And then from a legal and ethical accountability aspect, regulators may hold companies liable for AI-driven harms, which is like even without any new regulation in certain countries, existing automated decision-making rules can be used for AI use cases also. And then in those cases, what will happen is you want to make sure that AI upholds the same high bar for any automated decision making to avoid any legal and ethical implications. And then making sure your organization structure has a oversight into existing committees or revamping the existing committees to include those structures in place. So with that, I think I am coming to an end. So what are the key things which you can take away from this? Make sure it is an executive priority, not an afterthought. AI accountability is an executive priority, not an afterthought. Adopt standard, be it is 42001 or NIST RMA, or if your specific country and governing bodies has a framework that gets adopted. And then there is a clear documentation available on that. For companies which already has ISO 27001 and various certifications available who heavily depend on those as a mechanisms, it's easier to adopt. But if you don't have one, if the existing risk management has problems, that will still spill over to your AI use case also. It's not going to be much different than what was not there earlier. But since this is rapidly changing, adding AI into in their use cases, it is going to create more problem. So you want to make sure that adopting standard happens. Investing in transparency. If you are not building tech, which helps you to explainability, traceability, and auditability related core things, you are not building the right things. And then continuous learning in terms of like monitor for what is happening in your response. For example, you are building a chatbot or you are fine tuning a use case. You want to make sure your responses go through a sensitive filter scanning so that somebody is purposely, maliciously trying to play around with your system with improper prompts. Your system is capable of identifying those in the output before even it is sent to the actual customer. So on a closing note, I want you all to remember accountable AI isn't about stifling innovation, it is about sustainable innovation. Companies that govern AI well will not only avoid pitfalls, but also gain a competitive advantages through improved AI trustworthiness. With that, I'm coming to an end of my session. Thank you, Kingsley and team, for giving me this opportunity. I'll have 5 minutes for Q&A.
Thank you very much, Karthik, for that insightful presentation. My key takeaway is that ethical AI is not an afterthought. It should be at the forefront of every innovation. Please, with our digital hands, let's appreciate these wonderful presentations and also leave our key takeaways in the chat. It's time for Q&A, and now we have the privilege to ask all our questions to one of the brains behind Rufus of Amazon and Alexa. So if you've ever used Alexa and say, oh, Alexa, help me turn on my music, this is one of the brains behind Alexa. So please go ahead, put your hands up, and I would unmute you to ask your questions. Okay, I can see Tony's hand up. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Karthik, for the presentation. I have a couple of questions. Now, you said that when it comes to automation, if you have another way of using automation, don't resort to AI. I just want to know why you put that restriction. Maybe there was an incident, or you can give us examples. The second question. Sorry.
Okay.
The second question, in every company, which is the section that should be treated with the utmost care when it comes to using AI? Like it needs monitoring, or it needs special attention. Yeah, these are my two questions. Thank you.
Okay. So for the first question, right, what you are asking is like, okay, what I said was understand the use case. If that use case doesn't need a generative AI or a large language model based solution, it might be a overkill for that specific task. For example, you are doing some sort of form filling automation, or it is one simple task based automation. We have already existing robotic process automation tech today available that would solve the problem. It is just because my competitor is using AI, I want to use AI. It doesn't mean that your competitor's use case and systems may be different than your use case. Or put yourself, you are a consultant who's going and consulting such companies. It's not necessarily a generative AI or a LLM based solution will be the correct solution. Most boardrooms, this is what happening, right? Like today, this is what happening. Like, oh, I'm not doing something on Gen AI. Am I missing out on that? So the fear of missing out is so much. People are not thinking about what is the return on investment for this. If you have a true need which cannot be solvable by your existing mechanisms, you want a self-aware and continuous learning systems which can help. Like, for example, the cancer research and stuff, which we are talking about with advanced use cases, where these models have proven that they are capable of, speeding at the pace at which the innovation happens in that space. Those are valid use cases. For a simple task where your existing automation in the sense like current automated process by systems with robotic process automation and other tech today available, or Gen 1 tech before LLM, if that is solvable, it would be still a good solution for you. So it's not necessary that you have to jump onto it just for the sake of, so have that conversation. If you are on the consulting side of it, have that conversation. What is your goal? What is your return on investment you are expecting? And also, like being thoughtful, right? Because sustainable use of these because it needs massive power, massive generation, and that is also now spawning up the other aspect, right? Like sustainable AI being built, because you want to be considerate about the energy needs and stuff. Okay, so that is for your question one. Does it answer your question, Tony?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So sorry, I lost the second question in the chain of thoughts.
Sure. I can ask it again. In each company, which department or which section in the company that should be very careful implementing AI?
Okay. So as I said, like, having clear accountability or ownership established within the company will help to drive those decisions, right? They may not be the one, the accountable owners may not be the one owning the platform, hosting these software stack, but they have the power to influence who's owning that software stack to make sure that it is done in the right way. So make sure there is, depending on the corporate structure and the appetite to take the risk, it could lie with, in some cases, it will lie with the enterprise risk management group. In some cases, it will lie with a legal team who's always looking to protect the company from business risk. So AI risk is also business risk. So the legal team may be the one who's being accountable for these things, but they will influence, hey, you have this use case. I don't think so you are ready to deploy this in production because you are not meeting these criteria. So they'll have the power to block any product launches or going to new markets and stuff like that. It purely depends on the corporate structure, how it is structured. Or in some companies, it could be because, like, I'm a security product company, I want to do certain things, then probably the CISO leadership will have that responsibility. There is no one size fits all solution. Depending on what sort of organizations, they need to have one accountable team which can influence others.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that answer. I guess most of us have gotten to learn a lot. We do not have further questions from the hands I can see up so far. I don't know if you have any last words for us, Karthik, before you go.
Yeah, feel free to share my LinkedIn or reach out offline for any questions or anything which you want to have as a follow-up. Between 2022 November, when ChatGPT was first launched, it's not long ago, but 3 years in this space seems to be long. Mainly people have, as I said, like fear of missing out a lot rather than like, doing a thoughtful implementation. So if, depending on what sort of background you are, where or what level of career you are, make sure the FOMO is not driving this. Fear of missing out is not driving this. And understand what are the existing corporate risk. On top of it, this adds additional risk. The existing risk management is not up to the standard, doesn't matter. Even the same problems will carry over, or the problems will get multitude because of adopting AI in those scenarios.
Thank you very much. I love that. Make sure that the fear of missing out is not pushing our innovations. And Lashima said that her key takeaway from this session is that accountable AI is not about stifling innovations, it's about sustainable innovation. Proper AI governance creates an edge through improved AI trustworthiness. That's beautiful. The last question, please. This question just came in last minute, but Emmy is asking, how can we ensure transparency and accountability in the use of LLMs, especially in regions with weak or emerging governance frameworks? He just left that question in the chat.
Yeah, that more so lies in terms of those providers, right? Like, the diversity and inclusion comes in their data and representation, right? Like, I'm not only making this product for developed markets, I'm also making this product for developing markets, so that irrespective of where you are, where my user is, I'm getting the same sort of answer, and there is no bias in that. That comes from the self-regulating aspect of the entities. Governments and the governance structures within those regions can help, but if certain governments and regions doesn't have this, it's more on somebody who's building the product. The onus is on them, and then making sure they are having a fair and equal representation for those regions. Does it answer your question, Amy?
Yes, thank you. Does answer my question.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karthik, for that response and this wonderful presentation. It's really an honor to have you here. So when next you use Alexa, just remember that we just had someone who is the brain, one of the brains behind Alexa's, talking to us about AI accountability and corporate governance. So with our digital hands, please let's appreciate Karthik, and we will also leave his LinkedIn profile in the chat so we can connect with him and have further conversations on the topic. Thank you very much, Karthik. It's been a pleasure having you here at the summer school. Thank you very much.